Yo, what is up, everybody? It is Riley's Redzone here, back with another football video, and I'm here to bring you my picks for Week 1, all of the games except for the Chiefs-Texans, which I did a live stream of, by the way, so if you want to check that out, do that. I might be doing quite a bit of those videos, maybe on some night games, be live streaming and kind of have play-by-play analysis and reactions, but I will be picking all of the other games for this week, so hopefully I can make this a weekly series. So here, I'm basically going to be explaining who I think will win the game, who I think could be some good impact players, who might struggle this week, and that type of thing. So let's get right into my Week 1 NFL game picks, game by game. Okay, so for game number 1, I'm going to be talking about the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Washington football team. So this is a very good example of why I kind of waited till the end of this week to get some picks out, because there are a lot of injuries now going in this game, specifically on the Eagles side. Now, on the Eagles side, Miles Sanders is now out, so he will be replaced by Boston Scott. Then we also have a few defensive players, which I will talk about in a bit here, of how they are a huge impact. So the spread for this game is -5.5 for the Eagles. I would say that's pretty accurate. I have the Eagles, as you can see, whatever team my logo is kind of on, that's who I'm picking. So I'm still picking the Eagles, but it definitely became a lot closer today. So I wrote some notes for like who I think will do pretty well and who's going to struggle, and it's already adjusted. So one of my things here was for the Eagles defense. I definitely predicted Derek Barnett and Javon Hargrave to both have really good games against the Washington offensive line, but now they are both ruled out for the game. So that is a big thing for the Eagles, but honestly, D-line might be their deepest position, so they'll have some depth there. Plus, they already have Fletcher Cox as a D tackle, and then they have rotation guys like Brandon Graham, and then, he's their starting opposite defensive end, but then they've got a lot of players that they can bring in and out for the Eagles team. So I think they'll be okay. Also here, I think that the Miles Sanders injury is obviously an impact, but I think Boston Scott will get the job done fine. So I think Carson Wentz is going to do good. I think Zach Ertz and Deshaun Jackson specifically, with Alshon Jeffrey being out as well for this Eagles team. Jalen Reagor is kind of banged up. I think Deshaun Jackson will take that number 1 receiver role this week. And then we have Zach Ertz as well. I think the linebacking unit for the Washington football team is just not very good. Their best linebacker is John Bostic, and he's been on multiple teams in the past few years. I do think Chase Young, though, will have a very good first game. Also here, I think the football team's running backs will actually do okay this week. I'm interested to see who will get the most action between Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and maybe Bryce Love. So their offensive line, though, I don't really like for the football team. And also, I'm going to note, don't love the guard spots for the Eagles as well as the linebacking spots for the Eagles. So I do now think this is a lot closer game than I had originally. I'd say 5.5 is pretty fair. So I'm still picking the Eagles, but this has very quickly become a super close game. I think this should be a good one on Sunday. So next we are talking about the Jets and the Bills. So this should be an okay game. The spread for it right now is -6.5 for the Bills. I say that's fair. I might take the chance that I think the Bills will win by more than 6.5 points. But specifically, I think the big advantage here is going to be with the Buffalo's receivers. So definitely looking at the Jets' corner room. Obviously, Tremaine Johnson wasn't good last year, but they cut him, and he was kind of their number 1 corner. So now they have Pierre Desir and Basan Austin being their number 1 corners, their outside corners, because Brian Poole plays in the slot. So I definitely don't like that. Matching up against Stephon Diggs and John Brown. Diggs is an all-around receiver. John Brown is super fast. I don't necessarily love that matchup there. Also, I don't love the matchup between the Jets wide receivers and the Bills corners. Now, today that was affected because Josh Norman was put on injured reserve, but Tre'Davious White is probably, in my opinion, the second best corner in football behind Stephon Gilmore. So I think he's going to be locking him up because Jamison Crowder is the best receiver on the Jets, and he's kind of a slot guy. I believe Denzel Mims is actually banged up this week, so I think that's going to be a struggle. I think Darnold will struggle. But you could keep it in the game. I'm interested to see what Le'Veon Bell will do. I took him in 2 fantasy leagues, so I'm hoping he will do well. But I don't know. That's kind of a 50-50 shot there, whether he'll do good or bad. And I think the Bills are just overall over to win this. I think Josh Allen has a pretty good week this week. So I think the Bills win. This is going to be very interesting, though, to see if they can get a connection between Josh Allen and the wide receivers early in the season. Okay, so for this game, I may have a little bias here, but it's the other way, I guess. But so you may be thinking, yes, you have to be a fan of some teams. So I am a fan of the Minnesota Vikings. So hopefully that won't, affect many picks here. But I'm actually taking the Packers this week, specifically. Maybe later in the season, I think the Vikings can win. But I believe that the big difference here is I think that Danielle Hunter was going to be the game changer for the Vikings on defensive line. Yes, they still have Yannick Ngakoue now that they traded for, and I really like Afadio Denigbo, but really David Bakhtiari is one of the best left tackles, as well as Rick Wagner's okay. They signed him. And also, I think that the Smith brothers on defense for the Packers is going to be just a game wrecker for the Vikings. I think Brian O'Neill will be okay stopping one of them, but I think that Riley Reif might get exposed this week. So, Devontae Adams, I also think will have a really good game. Aaron Jones could do decent, but I really think Devontae Adams is going to go off this week, as the Vikings are kind of going to be testing out some young corners. They have Mike Hughes, who I personally think he can play outside, but he's really been really good at the slot position, which is what Mackenzie Alexander used to play, so he could be replacing there. They picked Cam Dantzler, which I think was a decent pick, but obviously he'll need time to develop, and they have a bunch of other young guys. Jeff Gladney also, obviously, in the first round. The spread is -2.5 for the Vikings, and home field advantage could be a big thing here, but there's actually no fans, so I think that this is going to be really close, but I am taking the Packers for week 1. But later in the season, I think this game might go the other way. So it's interesting. The Vikings are favored, but I'm technically taking the upset here. I would rather have the Vikings win and me be wrong about this pick. So I will be rooting for the Vikings on Sunday, but I am taking the Packers. Browns, Ravens here. The spread is -7.5 for the Ravens. I honestly think they will win by more than that. Cleveland is kind of banged up on defense. Some of their corners, I believe it's Greedy Williams and Kevin Johnson. So they still have Denzel Ward. But I think that some of these Ravens receivers will do good. If Ward matches up against Marquise Brown, that should be a fun matchup to watch. But then maybe a guy like Willie Snead or Miles Boykin can sneak in there and have a pretty good game against the Browns' other secondary pieces. But I think Lamar absolutely goes crazy in this game. I really think so. And I think that this is going to be a blowout, honestly. I think the Browns will come out slow against this one. Just they're banged up, and I think the Ravens have had decent health. And I really think their defensive line is going to be a big piece. And I think overall Lamar is just way too much against this Brown team. So I think the Ravens will win in a pretty big blowout. Then we have Colts versus Jags, which a lot of people think the Jags are the worst team in the league. I would personally probably agree with that, but I think they will put up actually a decent fight against the Colts this week. Now, the Colts are a team that I think will end up going like 8-8 or 9-7. I think they'll be pretty good. I just don't think they'll quite make the playoffs in Phillip Rivers' first year. But I think he will have a good week this week, and I also think T.Y. Hilton will have a very good week because C.J. Henderson is the Jags' best corner, and he's a rookie. His potential is super high, but I think he might come out, and T.Y. Hilton can cook him week 1. And DJ Chark, though, I think will have a good game for the Jags as well. But so I do agree the Jags are probably the worst team, but I think that this week they'll put up a decent fight. The spread is currently -8 for the Colts. I would take that. I think that is around where it will be. Could be closer to 10. I think this could be a surprise, like Jags keep it within one possession type of game, but I think the Colts win no matter what. Raiders, Panthers here. First game as the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think here this is actually going to be a decent game, probably one of the closer games of the week, but I'm actually taking the upset here. The Raiders are projected to win by 2.5 points, but I am taking the Panthers here. I think they will win this game. I think that overall I'm not a fan of the Raiders this year. I think they're a little overrated. I just don't think their pieces are going to really fit together this year. But the Panthers, I think, are one of the teams that is going to be pretty darn good, but they're going to be in a really tough division. You could definitely make the case they could get last, but I think I could see them getting at the minimum 4 or 5 wins, maybe 6, could even get up to maybe 8-8 this year. I really like Teddy as their quarterback. I think that DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are absolutely going to cook this Raiders secondary this week. I think, once again, I like to look at the wide receiver corner matchups a lot, but Damon Arnett is arguably the Raiders' number 1 corner, and I thought he was a late 2nd-round prospect, probably 3rd round maybe, but they picked him in the top 20. So he's a rookie and still needs some time to develop. But I definitely think that the Oakland defensive tackles could have some pretty good games, as well as the interior. They have a good center for the Panthers, but then left guard, right guard are kind of struggling a little bit for the Panthers. So I could see them having a decent game on the defensive line, but I am taking the upset here. I think that the Panthers are able to win this game. This is another example of where injuries have flipped it for me. So this might be the most interesting game to talk about. Neither of these teams are going to be super, super good this year, but definitely I've been predicting the Lions all week. But I think the Kenny Golladay injury is huge. He was kind of, doubtful, but now he's pretty much officially out. So he, I think, really would have been nice for them this week. To have, him go out there, and I think Danny Amendola is actually out as well, which is a big game changer. So Marvin Jones, if you're in fantasy leagues, will be a good pickup this week, but I definitely think that that's going to hurt the Lions, because Matthew Stafford I really like this year as a player, and he's going to be hindered a lot by not having those guys there. And the running backs are right now going to be kind of by committee. They have Adrian Peterson, DeAndre Swift, and Kerryon Johnson. They're going to be splitting the work, so I don't know how well that is going to work. And more specifically for Chicago, I think Khalil Mack absolutely goes off this game. I think he is going to do super well. Detroit gave Hal Vaitai a lot of money this offseason. He's been a backup swing tackle his whole career in Philadelphia. Didn't understand that move, why you get rid of Rick Wagner, and technically didn't re-sign Graham Glasgow, and instead of spending that money on, they spent that money on Hal Vaitai. I think $50 million for a guy who hasn't started, I think has been pretty poor when he has played. So that was a terrible move in my opinion, and he'll be matching up against Khalil Mack. So I think Khalil just goes crazy on that, and I think he's going to be really impactful. I do not like that Trubisky's starting. This is why I've been hesitating all week. I've been taking the Lions, specifically Trubisky is not going to be super good. But David Montgomery, I believe, is kind of getting closer to actually playing this week, so that could be helpful for them. But having the receivers healthy is a big thing. I definitely think Foles would have been better for the start of the season, but Trubisky is a starter, so that brings them down a lot. But I do think that the Bears end up getting the upset here. But this might be the closest game this week, so this could be a really good one, specifically because of the Lions' injury. So this should be a good one to watch on Sunday. Next, we have the Seahawks versus the Falcons. Now, this should be a very interesting one. So, a lot of people love the Seahawks as like a Super Bowl team this year. I personally don't. I think they're an easy playoff lock, though. And I feel that this year the Seahawks seem to be they're one of the top 4 teams that can compete for a Super Bowl, or some people think they're so overrated that they're barely going to make the playoffs or miss it. I'm kind of in between. I think they could get 11 or 12 wins, at the minimum 10. They should. I believe they're a very good team. They've got a lot of experience. I love Russell Wilson as a quarterback. But the Falcons are definitely kind of an underrated team. Now, this is where I'm not hating on the Falcons here. I think they will get upwards of 7 wins. I think they will get at least 7 wins this year. I think, or at least 6. But they're a sleeper team, but I just don't think they're ready quite yet for week 1. But I definitely think they will be a good surprise team this year. So note that down. I may be picking against them this week, but I think they really can end up bouncing back later in the season. So I am taking the Seahawks. They actually are favored to only win by 3 points. So this should be a good game, but I think it will be more than 3 points, but less than, let's just say, 10 points. I think this will be a close game, but I do think that the Seahawks win by more than 3. So this is going to be very interesting. I think that Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are both going to do very good this week. Atlanta is kind of struggling at corner with AJ Terrell being their their number one corner after they let Desmond Trufant go. And I do think, though, Grady Jarrett will have a good game for the Falcons. So this should be a very good one as well, but I am taking the Seahawks this week. Dolphins, Patriots, this is one of them, that Ryan Fitzpatrick is known for his upsets. He's known, to do pretty good, but I think most of the time the Dolphins do well is they've gotten a lot of upsets against the Patriots, but most of the time when that happens, it's actually at home for the Dolphins. So I think they'll struggle on the road, but then again, so I think Cam has a really good game, but I could see him struggling as well because it's his first game. So don't overreact to whatever ends up happening. I think it is going to be interesting though. I think the Patriots wide receivers are shut down by the Dolphins corners, more specifically, of course, Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. So I think they're going to be a pretty big game changer. So I don't know how well the wide receivers will get open for Cam, which is obviously a concern, but I think that he's enough to kind of carry them. Their running game also isn't that strong, so I think that Cam's running game will be very important for that. So overall, this could be an upset game, figuratively. The spread is -7 for the Patriots, so they're projected to win by 7 points. I'd say that's fair. It's either going to be a blowout, where it's going to be, upwards of 10 points, maybe 14, 17 even more possibly, or it's going to be what they're maybe more projecting a super close game, and I could see that happening. It's however Fitzpatrick plays this week. So that should be an interesting one. So it should either be a blowout for the Patriots or a really close one with the Dolphins keeping it close. Then we have Chargers-Bengals. I think this one should be very interesting. Very close on the spreads here. The Chargers are -2.5. I think that the Chargers do win this game, though. I think they will win by more than 2.5, but this could be very close. I really like the Bengals this year as they'll probably be average, maybe a low-end playoff team. But I don't think Joe Burrow starts on fire out the gate. He could have a good game, but definitely the Bengals' injuries are really going to be impactful here. Specifically, Geno Atkins at D-tackle. That's huge in my opinion. I think that he is a very big impact on that defensive line. Has been for a super long time, for his whole career. So I think that's a big loss for them. Chargers, they've got the run game with Austin Eckler, and then the pass game, although it's not ideal to have Tyrod Taylor as your starting quarterback, I think the Chargers are a very underrated team this year. I think they will finish probably second or maybe third, depending on. I think the Raiders finished last in the AFC West, but then it's between the breakout team, between Chargers and Broncos. But with the Von Miller injury, I'd say the Chargers. So I think they're kind of an underrated team that will finish maybe second in this division. So I have them winning this week, and I think they will win by more than 2.5 points. Then we have the Bucs and Saints, and I like the Bucs this year, but this is probably, I might say the Saints are on paper possibly the best team in the NFC. So this could be a tough game for the Bucs. So I really like the Bucs this year, but right now the Saints are favored by 3.5. I'd say that's accurate. This might be one of the best games of Week 1. This really could be. I think that the Saints, though, are super, super good. Definitely, I don't know how they keep making money. There's so much negative money. So in the future, I don't think they'll be good. But this year, I think they're going all in. I have them winning this game. Could be closer, though. I definitely think that this will be a super good game. But I think overall for this week, the Saints are going to be too much for the Bucs. But definitely both going to be really good teams this year in total. Definitely, I think these two fight for the division. So I have the Saints winning in probably a very close game. This one here definitely is another one where it's like, I like the Cardinals this year, so don't call me a Cardinals hater with this one. I think they have a super good year. I think they're a super great team. I specifically think Kyler Murray could have an MVP level season, but unfortunately they're in probably one of the, maybe the best, I would call it the best division in football. So, especially with the way I see things going. And I think the best they could do is third in this division. So I still really like the Cardinals. But this week, I think the Niners are possibly the best team in this division. They've got, Nick Bosa on defense there I really like. And I think that Richard Sherman will do a decent job. I still think that Hopkins will get the advantage this week. I think Hopkins will have a really good first game. So definitely this is one where I see a lot of people kind of writing off the Cardinals this week. I think this will be a super close game, but I do think the 49ers win. The spread is -6.5 Niners. I would say that's about accurate. I think this will be a one-possession game, very close. And I really like the Cardinals this year, but for this week, the Niners win. Cowboys, Rams, Sunday Night Football, first game in the Rams' new stadium. This should be a really good one. I do think that I actually have an upset here. The spread is -2.5 Cowboys, and I do think the Rams actually pulled this off. I consider the Cowboys and the Rams to be very similar tier. I think both of these teams will end up going 8-8 or 9-7. I do think that the Rams kind of have the disadvantage of being in a very good division, while the Cowboys are kind of in the opposite boat. Even if they finish second, they've got a very good chance of winning that division as well, but also making the playoffs no matter what. So I think it's between the Cowboys and the Eagles for that one. So I am picking the Rams this week, kind of because of home field advantage. This should be one of the better games, though. Definitely can see why people think the Cowboys will win, but I think this week the Rams are able to get on top and win in their first game at home. This should be a super good one, though, once again. I think these teams are very, very close in ranking, but I have the Rams winning this week. Steelers, Giants, Monday Night Football. I think that the spread here says that the Steelers are projected to win by 6. I think they win by more. I think the Steelers are going to be very dominant this year. I think they'll get second in the division behind the Ravens, and I think they're going to be super good. People are kind of forgetting how good Ben Roethlisberger is just because he was hurt last season, but I think they tear it up this year. Juju is a weapon out there. He's super good at wide receiver. I think James Conner kind of has a decent bounce back year. Love Saquon obviously for the Giants, but I think that the Steelers defense might be the best in football. There's a reason they're being picked first in fantasy every single time. So they, with TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, lots of good players, Cam Hayward, they've just got so many great players on that team. So I think that they are gonna absolutely dominate the Giants this week. Even though it's at the Giants, I think the Steelers win by a pretty good amount, more than 6. Last game that I'm going to be covering, this might be my favorite game this week, possibly could be the closest. This is really split. Right now, Von Miller is a huge loss for the Broncos, but more specifically what I'm looking at this week, which is the reason I took the Titans, is Courtland Sutton is questionable. So I think he's kind of banged up. Even if he plays, I think he will be not 100%, and I don't know if Jerry Jeudy is ready to pick up the number 1 role this week. So if Courtland Sutton is 100%, I'm taking the Broncos in this game. I love Drew Lock. I think that for the past few years, we've seen a second-year quarterback make a big leap. It was Mahomes and it was Lamar. I think it's either going to be Drew Lock, which I really have liked Drew Lock for a long time here, but now that the Broncos might be a little bit worse without Vaughn, I think that affects things. But it's going to be him or Kyler, in my opinion, that really has a strong MVP case. So Courtland Sutton is a big loss. Right now the Titans are favored by 3. They just signed Jadeveon Clowney recently, so I am going with them. But you could see it the other way as well. This might be the closest game. Jarrell Casey might be a big impact because he knows the Titans system, but I'm taking the Titans strictly kind of because of injury. But this is definitely one I'm not 100% confident in, so I could be wrong on this one. But for right now, I'm going with the Titans. Thank you so much for watching this week's game picks. Hopefully going to be able to do this every week. I will try to. Some weeks I might be able to get it out before the Thursday night game. Some might have to wait. But we will see. I overall, though, am excited for this football season. I'm excited this year specifically as a channel to finally start putting out some content during the season like this. I'm also planning on this week maybe starting a Madden franchise series, kind of rebuilding a team. So, with that being said, thanks for watching.